Hello, Phantom Fam, and thanks for tuning in to yet another episode. I'm Kate, and with me today is, of course, Nat.
Hello.
When I say we're covering an iconic location today, I mean iconic. In this episode, we're diving into the crimes, hauntings, and demonic possessions of the Amityville horror.
Dun dun dun.
Without further ado, let's get this one rolling, because this is Wading into the Void. As you just heard, this week we're covering the infamous Amityville horror, and no, we're not just covering the well-known hauntings, we're covering the atrocious crimes committed by Ronald DeFeo Jr. This one is a lot to unpack, but before we start to unload the devastations and demonic infestations, I'm spitting bars, Nat's going to do our oracle and tarot reading.
Hell yeah! So, for today's cards, we are doing the Enchanted Map Oracle by Colette Baron Reed. And our card for today looks hilarious to me. It is a snail fairy.
What the fuck is that?
It's a snail fairy. Like, imagine a mermaid fairy, but with a snail shell as their ass.
I'm honestly just kind of disturbed by that whole thing. Like, I don't know what to make from that. We are going to make sure to share that picture, because...
Yes, I have I took the picture, so I have it saved. So... we got the card Slow and Steady, and it says slow and steady wins the race. Mm-hmm. Remember the old cliche, slow and steady wins the race. This is a time for easy movement, unhurried steps, and a steady heart. Trust that taking life at a more leisurely pace will give you greater access to your dreams. Slowing down allows more contact with the juicier elements of your life. Savor them. Which, this is really interesting.
I think that's a great sentiment, but I don't think in this year either of us are planning to slow anything down.
No, but I had like an aha moment. And it's like, when you apply for a job, they always say like it's from Monday to Friday, 8 to 4, whatever, you know?
9 to 5, blah, blah,
and, like,
blah.
a lot of people recently have been negotiating for 4-day weeks and taking less pay.
I would in a heartbeat.
And I just had an aha moment. Like, I could totally get a job that's supposed to be, like, 60,000 and take, like, 55 or 54 with 4-day week. And I was like, why would I not do that? Like, that's insane. I would rather take less pay and make what I make now, or a little bit more, and less days. And it's like,
enjoy your damn life, yeah.
And people are so desperate for positions and people that they would probably do it.
I mean, some work is better than no work, so.
Yeah. So it's just insane. I just had that, like, aha moment, and I was like, I think I could probably negotiate that, and I would have so much more time to just focus and relax on my life.
Yeah.
Like...
it sounds lovely. A lot of bigger companies in the U.S. are starting to turn towards it, or at least strongly consider it. I don't see it happening anytime soon for me as a marketing professional, but it is a lovely thought.
I could very easily do it as an accountant.
Yeah, I don't have that luxury.
As long as I'm not doing taxes, you choose a specific day that you do your payables or your payroll or anything like that, and like Fridays you don't really I mean, Fridays are usually a shit show at my current job, but every day is a shit show at my current job. So.
Yeah, I don't know. In communications, at the drop of a hat, you got to be ready to go. So it makes it a little more challenging. Whereas, like, the 4-day work week's a little concerned. But
yeah. But I was
that's
like,
what you know going into that field, so.
Yeah. I don't know. I was just like, huh. Well, that makes sense.
It does, yeah.
And then what's crazy is that for this episode, considering what we're going to be talking about, I decided that we were going to do the horror tarot for the Amityville horror. And the horror tarot deck is by Aria Mitter and Minerva Siegel and illustrated by Abigail Larson. And what's crazy is the card that we got for today.
What the fuck?
Is the 9 of Wands.
Uh-huh.
And we got it upright. And it says, stand strong and remain confident during times of adversity. The 9 of Wands represents a patient person who is willing to wait for the right moment to take action. So both of these cards are kind of saying, like, slow down. And last week, we kind of talked about how we were like, go, 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 like, do this, do that, do this, do that, do this, do that. And, like, make these moves, make these money moves, make this, do that. And, like, now the cards are like, okay, you're gonna overwhelm yourself. You have to take it at a steady pace. And
I do not know what that is.
yeah, I'm like, huh? What does that mean? I don't know. I'm like, school's starting up again. Now I'm starting to stream multiple times a week. Yep. I have the podcast that I have to figure out. I have to edit. I'm like, I have to plan my entire week out just perfectly. Yeah. And I also have to plan around when Dylan has his days off so that we can spend time together. And I know you have that with Elijah. Yep. And, like, it's like, how do people... I was thinking recently also, like, it seems like when you become an adult, when you're a kid, you're like, oh, I can't wait to get out of school. Having a job and being able to go home after work and not do homework is, like, so nice. And it's like...
Bitch, they tried to tell us. None of us ever listened.
Nobody listened. I can't imagine just having, like, one job and not doing any extracurriculars and just watching TV every day. Like,
that's a dream for the wealthy.
That's what my parents do. Like, they're not wealthy at all. Like,
what is that like?
They just don't have extracurriculars.
I mean, like, you just described what your week looks like, and mine is not very different.
Yeah.
Work, 8 to 4. I get home around 5. Then I come home. I'm starting my master's program at the end of January. So I'm going to have to incorporate that. I've been out of school for 2 years, so it's going to be a minor learning curve. Yeah. We have the podcast, which requires a lot of time and research. And on top of that, because of my career, I do freelance work too. So I'm just like...
Yeah, we're both
when am I going to find the time?
We're, like, both working basically, like, 3 jobs.
Pretty much, yeah.
2 of which don't even pay us. Well, you're freelance.
One doesn't pay me enough.
Yeah. Well, I don't get paid yet, but I will probably next week. Yes! Surprise! I'm going to be an affiliate on Twitch soon.
Shout out the channel. Come on.
Oh, yeah. Go follow me at natty__ice. I stream a couple times a week. Some by myself, some with group of lovely people who are also streamers and or in my Discord server, Natty Ice World. Yeah.
Take advantage of those opportunities. Shout it out.
Yeah, man. It's exciting. It, like, exploded. It's crazy.
I'm very happy for you.
Yeah, I'm really happy.
But At the risk of turning into another Bennington Triangle episode where us two girls go on a tangent for 15 minutes at the start of the show.
Sorry.
Throwback
so
to
funny.
30 episodes ago. But
Yeah.
we're about
More
10
than
minutes
that.
in. And we're gonna...
Yeah, 32.
I don't know.
33.
We're gonna transition over to the actual topic of today's episode, the Amityville horror. But before we start this one, I have one small self-deprecating New Year's resolution to add.
Okay.
I am going to try so hard not to start every new paragraph, segment, introduction to a new theory, whatever you want to call it, with now, so, or like. It's gonna be hard, but after listening back to our episodes, I realized I do it so frequently. It was starting to become like a pet peeve.
I also say so, and I try to edit it out sometimes, but it's like so much. We say it so much.
No more weak topic entries.
I'll try to cut them out. I don't know.
With that being tossed out there, let's start chatting about the Amityville horror.
Okay.
Today's topic begins on June 28th, 1965, when the DeFeo family moved into the Ocean Avenue property in Long Island, New York.
New York.
For the 9 years that the DeFeo family lived on Ocean Avenue, their neighbors and acquaintances believed them to be a happy and loving family. They lended helping hands and gave car rides to those who needed one. We loved taking advantage of that carpool lane. There were hand-painted portraits of the family members hung on the walls. They cost $50,000.
Now?
A jealousy... What?
Or they paid $50,000.
Then. That's what it cost to paint them.
Why? Why would they do that?
Money.
They had money? Like, they had a lot of money?
We'll get into it, but on the short scope, yes, they were living in Long Island in a very affluent neighborhood of Amityville, which, you know, before the murders and hauntings was, like, the spot to be.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, so, in short scope, they had some cash. Now, like I said, they had hand-painted portraits of their family members on the wall, a jealousy-inducing pool, nearby water access where their boat was docked, and their Dutch colonial-style home was, of course, well-maintained.
Okay. I have comments to make, but I will refrain.
No, please, feel free to let it out there.
Okay. First of all, eat the rich.
Yes, yes.
Why do we... This is really insensitive, but why do we feel bad for these people again if they were this rich?
Well, there are some you can feel, you know, sad for, and then other things. You have to look at it on the wider scope, right? There's a yin to every yang. No one's all good, no one's all bad. But behind closed doors, things couldn't be any further for what they seemed for the family of 7.
Oh, 7? Oh my
7.
God.
In reality, the home where Ronald Sr., Luis, Ronald Jr., Dawn, Allison, Mark, and John Matthew lived was purchased for them by Luis's father.
Oh.
Ronald Sr. busted his ass working at his father-in-law's auto dealership, but barely made enough to support his family's lavish lifestyle.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes, all of the jaw-dropping wealth and elegance Ronald Sr., or Big Ronnie, displayed
Big Ronnie.
displayed on the outside was barely earned himself and in actuality was handed to him by his father-in-law.
Damn.
Behind closed doors, Big Ronnie was a mentally and, on occasion, physically abusive man. He frequently took his acts of violence out on his eldest son, Ronald Jr., who went by the name Butch. And Butch is what we'll refer to Ronald Jr. as throughout this episode.
Mm-hmm.
The pair had very little in common and hardly ever saw eye to eye. This butting of heads began early on when Butch was getting bullied at school. Because if it wasn't enough that he was getting it at home, he had to get it at school too. Butch was, to put it nicely, overweight in his younger years, and fell victim to the cruel behavior of his peers, as, you know, many children that struggle with their weight often do here in the U.S. because we're shitty people. He was often being called names like pork chop, and the more creative or less creative one, the blob. Like, where do you come up with that? But
That,
to each their own.
I feel like is like so unoriginal. Like, okay.
Thank you. I couldn't decide. Like, I'd never heard anyone referred to as a blob before, and I was going back and forth between whether I thought it was creative or just lame. I mean,
lame.
given it was still bullying, so it's lame to begin with. But as far as, like, nicknames, quote-unquote, are concerned, His father would demand that Butch stand up for himself when at school, but resorted to violence if he spoke back or showed any type of distress at home. He couldn't have it both ways. As Butch progressed into his teen years, he started to shed his extra weight and put on some bulk, mostly in his height, just like as every growing teenage boy usually does. Although his weight loss was not through healthy measures, and was actually the result of consistent drug usage.
Oh.
Drugs and alcohol were something Butch started to rely on as quite the coping mechanism. The drugs and alcohol made Butch bolder, and he began to stand up to his father when he was in a fit of rage. However, it appeared the rage seemed to be hereditary. No longer an easy target for his father, the two would more often than not settle their arguments with fistfights and boxing matches, because that's a normal, healthy relationship. Although blinded by his abusive tendencies, Ronnie was not willing to turn his head to his son's abnormal behavior. So, Ronnie was like, yeah. Ronnie was like,
crazy meds.
Ronnie was like, yeah, no, it's okay for me to beat my children. And, like, that's totally fine. But, like, you're showing a little bit of psychotic behavior. And, like, that's not normal.
I wonder why, Papa.
I know, right? Like, where could he get it from?
No clue. He has kind and loving parents.
At least maybe on one side. I couldn't find much on Luis. So.
I don't know.
Nonetheless, the DeFeo parents arranged for their son to see a psychiatrist. And for, like, the late 60s, early 70s, honestly, that's kind of surprising.
Interesting.
It's a little forward with the times. Especially for rich people that try and, you know, hide the bad things of their life at this point.
But also the fact that this parent is not a good parent.
Exactly.
And they seeked, like, psychological help for their child. It's very interesting.
There's this weird dichotomy that's, like, going on.
Yeah.
But it quickly became apparent that it was not working. Butch continued to become passive-aggressive and rejected the idea that he needed any help. He would, like, just blatantly ignore or, like, verbally abuse his psychiatrist when they had appointments. So, you know,
What the fuck?
he was really trying to take that time to get that help. As a result, Ronnie and Louise made the simpler path. You know, they chose the simpler path of catering to their son's every whim and turning him into the definition of a spoiled brat.
Oh, great.
And for everyone listening, considering the later events, I think I'm allowed to say that he's a spoiled brat. So, I digress. Butch was given money and gifts to calm his increasingly concerning attitude. At the age of 14, his parents went as far as to present him with a $14,000 speedboat to cruise in the nearby Amityville River.
What?
What 14-year-old boy needs a speedboat? He can't even drive.
What the hell?
It was $14,000 in the 60s. That's what,
30,000 now, probably?
Yeah. What 14-year-old needs a $30,000 boat? None. That's the answer.
That's fucking insane.
When Butch wanted something, literally all he had to do was ask, and he would receive. But for him, asking was sometimes just too much, and he would take it instead. At the age of 17, he was forced to leave the school he was attending, and he began to be committed to heavy and frequent drug use.
What kind of
His drugs of choice
Oh, okay.
being LSD and heroin.
Oh, what a combo.
Yes, no, I don't think you could find a better combination right there.
Holy shit. That's like PCP.
Yeah.
The combination's like fucking PCP.
Yeah, no, I didn't know how he combined those two drugs. If, he would take the LSD when it started to wear off, he'd shoot up. I don't know, but there was pretty much no time that he wasn't at least somewhat high.
That's fucked.
I mean, he had the money to pay for his addiction, so
yeah,
it's not surprising that he was able to keep it up. At this time, he thought it would be a great idea to start participating in some petty thievery, too. I mean, what better hobby is there for a drug-abusing, unimaginably violent, and still maturing individual? Petty robbery, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you thought that was bad, rest assured that it gets worse.
Great.
In addition to all of this, Butch had a love for weapons and guns and would go on hunting trips with his friends. And we've said it before, neither of us is strongly opposed to hunting. We both come from hunting families. It's not anything surprising to us. We live in New England where it's literally a lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
But when you combine the, adoration and obsession with guns and weapons with all of these other things, it's a little concerning.
I'd say it's very concerning. Yeah.
I was trying to be nice, but, no, it's pretty fucking concerning. And on one hunting trip, he took his psychotic behavior to a new level.
Oh.
Instead of, continuing to hide it behind the walls of the DeFeo home, it started to slip out in public. Butch pointed a loaded rifle at a member of his hunting party. Someone he had known for years, someone he would consider a friend. After holding his rifle on the man for a just really concerning period of time, and watching his acquaintance turn ghostly pale, Butch lowered the gun, but only when the man fled in the other direction. How this man had the guts to turn his back to him and run, I don't know. I probably would have slowly backed away.
Yeah.
But to make matters worse, when they ran into one another later in the day, completely by chance, Butch asked the man why he had left so early.
Huh?
I don't know if this question was meant to taunt the other man, or if Butch was genuinely confused as to why his friend abandoned them before their outing was over.
You think he was, that fucked up on drugs?
On drugs or other things.
Demons.
Depending on later accounts.
Okay.
Who knows? Maybe there's a chance that he was high, or Fucking possessed by the devil. I don't know.
Yeah.
But we're not going to get into that one yet.
Okay.
By the time Butch had turned 18, he had a job. I would use the word job loosely.
Oh.
And this was at his grandfather's Buick dealership. So, like, Grandpappy owns a Buick dealership, okay? So that's where they're getting all their money. Because Buicks aren't cheap. Very little was expected of him, and half the time he just wouldn't show up to work. By his own account, Butch said this job was like a cakewalk. Whether he was there or not, his father gave him a weekly paycheck. I don't want to know what the paycheck was, because as someone who works as much as I do and knows what I get paid, and this fucker got to literally just sit there and leave early and not show up and he got paid, I don't want to know.
Yeah, that pisses me off.
We repeat, eat the rich. He would use this money to support, of course, his drug addiction, put gas in his car, the car that his parents bought him, and, you know, nothing wrong with that. A lot of people's parents buy them cars, but, you know, don't be a spoiled brat about it. As well as buy more guns and ammunition. Working and living with his father was not a good thing for Butch, to put it lightly. Their altercations were getting progressively more violent, and one night hit a breaking point. One night, Ronnie and Luis were taking part in a heated argument in the downstairs of the DeFeo home. Butch overheard this, picked up his 12-gauge shotgun, loaded it, and marched downstairs to his parents. Once he was at the bottom of the landing, with no hesitation, Butch lifted the gun, aimed it at his father's chest, and said, and I quote, "Leave that woman alone. I'm going to kill you, you fat fuck. This is it."
Oh.
It gets worse. Because much to Ronnie and Luis's horror, Butch pulled the trigger. But mysteriously, the gun didn't go off. With a misplaced sense of calm, Butch lowered the gun, stalked out of the room, and went back upstairs.
What the heck?
The fight was over. Everyone was just confused. Things went on as normal. I don't know how, but to each their own.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Do you have any thoughts on that?
That is just so weird to me.
So, like, already we're seeing some strange instances in this house, right? Like,
this kid is
new
like...
guns just randomly not firing?
Yeah.
That's a little strange.
When somebody
Especially
has an
being
intent to kill, too.
Exactly. In the weeks after this previously mentioned night, Butch and Ronnie continued to work together. The cracks in their relationship no longer repairable. After all, Butch nearly murdered his father in cold blood. Nothing was ever enough for Butch's ungrateful ass. He developed a plan to defraud not only his family, but his grandfather's business.
Why?
Because he's an asshole.
Yeah, he's literally just an asshole.
It's the definition of you can feel bad for the kid, right? Like when he was getting bullied and beat by his father.
Yeah.
But dude's just a dick. Like there's no other way around it.
You feel bad for the child, but you don't feel bad for the monster that they become.
Exactly. While at work, one employee had the bright idea to send him on a trip to the bank. You know, to deposit some money and deposit some checks.
This dude.
Instead, he decided that he was going to steal the $21,800 he was given and fake a robbery.
What?
I can't help but laugh because it just gets more ridiculous as it goes along. Like, when you hear about the Amityville horror, you don't hear about any of this, right? So, like, when I was digging this up, I was just like, holy shit, what even is this? Instead, he decided, like I just said, he was going to steal the $21,800 and fake a robbery. Him and a friend split their loot and, went on their way after claiming to be robbed at gunpoint. But Butch decided he wasn't going to return to the dealership after being quote-unquote robbed for over an hour and just went off and fucked around. Mm-hmm. Once he got back to the shop and reported the robbery to the police, they immediately arrived and set out to question him. At the same time, Ronnie was busy bitching out that employee that gave Butch the money. And I mean, right and wrong there, you should have been smart enough not to give Butch the money to go deposit, but in the other side, it's not his fault that your slimy, skeezy son decided he was gonna steal it. But yeah. Instantly, the police were suspicious of Butch. His story was odd, the timeline didn't make sense, and he was giving them too much attitude for a man in his situation. There was no shock or horror at the fact that he had been robbed at gunpoint. At Ronnie's request, the police backed off Butch. Money can buy whatever you want. But the police continued their investigation, not targeting Butch. Mm-hmm. They rounded up a few suspects and called Butch into the station to see if he could identify any of them as the robber. Because apparently, the Long Island police have nothing better to do. At first, Butch agreed to go, but he decided last minute that, it just wasn't for him. He didn't need to identify him. It was okay. It was only $21,800. I mean, that's only what some people make in a year.
Yeah, what?
This sent Ronnie into a blind rage and caused him to confront Butch at work, which is something that, had never been done before between those two. After many words were shared, because oddly enough they didn't get violent, which was maybe a blessing because it was in public. Ronnie didn't want to taint his reputation as the nice family man, I don't know. Ronnie was quoted saying, "You've got the devil on your back." And considering what happens later, that everyone knows from the Amityville Horror, that quote's kind of okay, makes you wonder a little bit. Before storming off in his car and putting an end to the confrontation, Butch once again told his father, "I'm gonna kill you, you fat fuck." Because apparently someone that got bullied for being fat when they were younger has to get their digs in where they can. I don't even know if Ronnie was a fat man. He could have just been a normal man. But Butch was just like, "You're a fat fuck now, I guess, because I'm gonna say you are." On November 14th, 1974, the dueling between father and son would come to an end. Butch reported to his grandfather's Buick dealership at 6 a.m. to start his workday. But as the hours dragged on, Ronnie DeFeo never showed. Ronnie wasn't the type to miss work, and especially not call in. Butch took this opportunity, to get his comeuppance and say, "You know what, I'm gonna call him. He didn't come in, he gives me shit, I'm gonna give him shit." But no one answered the phone when he called home. Butch would try and call a few more times before leaving work early because he just didn't have anything to do. After meeting up with his girlfriend Sherry Klein, I'm not quite sure how to say it, and letting her know he couldn't get a hold of his family, despite all of their vehicles being in the driveway at home, the pair decided they were gonna go shopping.
What?
Yep, they just hit up the strip. They were like, "I'm gonna go buy a new jacket." Butch dropped Sherry back off at home, and he went inside to call his house one more time before he left her apartment. This was before cell phones, so he would have to use a landline. So this is why he went into her apartment. Still, there was no answer. No one picked up the phone. Butch said, "There's something going on over there." You don't think. He also mentioned that the door was locked and he couldn't get into the house. Instead of, I don't know, calling and reporting it to the police, he spent the afternoon hanging out with his friends, drinking, and shooting heroin before stopping by a local bar called Henry's, where he ran into a few more friends. He told them he was gonna head home and try and get a hold of his family, but he'd have to break a window to get in. After heading home, he was back at the bar in just a few minutes, shouting and crying, "You gotta help me. Someone shot my mother and father." A small group of people at the bar, so most likely they were at least somewhat buzzed, squeezed into Butch's car and headed to the DeFeo residence. I can only imagine that they probably looked like a clown car with the number of people that piled in. Members of the group raced upstairs and into the master bedroom, where they found Ronald Sr. and Luis dead in their beds. Both had been shot 2 times in the back. The police were phoned and arrived within 10 minutes. I want to point out that it was not Butch who called the police. One of the men that had come was the person that called the police. The first officer to arrive found a band of men gathered on the DeFeo's front lawn. Butch was in the center, crying hysterically. The Amityville police entered the house after several officers had arrived and headed upstairs to unpack the brutal scene. Upon arriving, they discovered that Ronald Sr. was shot first. One shot to the back that ripped apart his kidney, and another that lodged in his spine. Luis was shot next. 2 bullets were fired into her back and shattered her rib cage, forcing her lung to collapse.
Oh gosh.
If this wasn't bad enough, the police continued their search and found the 4 other DeFeo siblings dead in their beds. The young boys had also been shot in the back. Mark died from organ failure in addition to his bullet wound, while John Matthew, the youngest boy, had his spinal cord severed. After suffering painful spasms for several minutes,
oh no,
John Matthew passed away.
Oh my god.
The night of trauma wouldn't stop there, though. The last bedroom they went into, they found Dawn and Allison also dead in their beds. Allison, the younger of the 2 girls, had been shot ruthlessly through the face.
What the fuck?
She had apparently kind of heard whoever the murderer was enter the room and had begun to set up. And they shot her point blank in the face.
Oh my god.
Immediately after, Dawn, the second oldest DeFeo sibling, was shot through the side of the head, and this blew off apparently half of her face.
Oh my god.
So, as you're going through, this violence is just
Getting
escalating
worse.
and escalating.
Yeah.
All 6 of the DeFeo victims suffered from extreme overkill. But why was Butch spared? Butch didn't have any explanation for why he was the sole survivor, or why he hadn't heard the rest of his family being brutally slain at 3 a.m. But no one else on the street had heard it either. In fact, why hadn't any of the DeFeo family woken up after each gunshot rang out? How come no one heard the DeFeo family dog barking the whole night as it was chained up outside? There were so many questions, but it wouldn't take long to find out some of the answers they were looking for. At first, the police were concerned for Butch and brought him down to the station for his own protection. Butch had told them that this had to be some type of mob hit. But the man he accused, Louis Fellini, had proven to be out of town. Louis was apparently a man that had lived with the DeFeos for some time. I believe he had worked with Ronnie at the shop. Mm-hmm. And, like, they were trying to help him get back on his feet. But it's with this story that Butch started to damn himself. While he was claiming Fellini had to be the main suspect, Butch admitted to being a heroin addict and committing insurance fraud for his father to collect money. He had apparently set a boat on fire for him so he could claim the insurance money. I don't know if it was his $14,000 boat or a different boat, but he set it on fire. Around 3 a.m. that morning, the police wrapped up their questioning, and although they found out some unsettling facts about the only living DeFeo, they didn't have anything to immediately put him or, like, point to him as a suspect. I personally think a bit of that is bullshit, but maybe that's just me. You don't consider the only living person of a family of 6 to be some type of suspect immediately? This changed quickly, though. As the investigators continued to search the property and surrounding area, they turned up a few key pieces of evidence. One of them being the murder weapon. After closer examination over the following days, the police discovered that the murder weapon was a .35 caliber Marlin rifle. Lo and behold, empty boxes once belonging to a Marlin .35 caliber rifle were found in Butch's bedroom at the DeFeo residence. Upon turning this evidence up, the investigators learned that Butch was a gun fanatic and that he faked the robbery earlier that year. Why they hadn't known this immediately, I don't understand. Regardless, this led to them seriously considering Butch as a suspect in the crimes. When the police approached Butch, he questioned them on whether or not they found Fellini. But instead, the cops read him his rights and brought him in. Butch, interestingly enough, waived his rights and claimed with all his power that he was only a victim. Except when the timeline of the murders became clearer at the hands of the medical examiner, Butch's story began to crumble around him. For a while longer, even as the police questioned him on his missing rifle, Butch stuck to the fact that he knew nothing. This time, he claimed that Fellini woke him up early in the morning with a gun to his head. Fellini and an accomplice made their way through the DeFeo residence, shooting each and every family member. And in his shock, Butch began cleaning up the evidence they left behind. Could this be a trauma response of Ronnie wanting the house always to be clean? Who knows? In his new statement, Butch ended up damning himself. Through carefully placed questions, the police ended up getting Butch to admit that it was him. And in the end, this is what he had to say. It all started so fast. Once I started, I couldn't stop. It went so fast. About a year later, on October 14th, 1975, Butch's trial took place. The brutality and strange details of the case caught the United States by storm. Butch's lawyer built the case that Butch himself shouldn't be held responsible for the murder of his family, and that he was hearing demonic voices. Despite this plea, DeFeo was ruled sane enough to stand trial and was sentenced to 6 counts of second-degree murder. That is a total of 150 years to life in prison. No matter if Butch was responsible for the murders, there are some facts of the case that still leave us a little confused. All 6 victims were found face down on the bed and showed no signs of struggle, despite there being no sedatives or gun silencers or suppressors being used in this case. No one in the house had woken up as all these shots were fired. The only one that seemed to notice the blasts was the family dog, who could be found barking outside. In addition, none of the neighbors heard a sound. The other question was, what was the motive? Yes, there was a clear motive for killing his father. They didn't get along, and Butch had been abused for many years growing up. But what about the rest of the DeFeo family? They suffered at the hands of Ronnie just as much. That just didn't add up. Butch was said to get along with the rest of his family, especially his sister Dawn, who was closest to him in age. It's said that they would smoke pot together every now and then and had a couple of mutual friends. What reason would he have to kill his youngest siblings, who were still in elementary school? What could they have done to make him that angry? It just didn't make sense. And Butch himself never had any reason as to why he did it. He changed his story numerous times during his stay in prison. Could it be that Butch was actually possessed by demons? Did the devil make him do it? Regardless, Ronald DeFeo Jr. died in prison on March 12th, 2021. So, not long ago. At the age of 69. But not before leaving us with these words. I guess the Amityville horror really is supposed to be me. Because I'm the one that got convicted of killing my family. I'm the one who say did it. I'm the one that's supposed to be possessed by the devil. Was Ronald DeFeo Jr. the real Amityville horror? Or was he the spark that ignited it all? After I dive into the story of the Lutz family, who suffered debatably some of the most famous hauntings in the United States, ones that most people know as the Amityville horror, I'll let you decide. But sadly, you're going to have to wait. This is where I'm going to end part 1 of our coverage of the Amityville horror. But rest assured that part 2 is going to be well worth the wait. And you can expect that episode next week. Nat, any final words, thoughts, or hopes for part 2 before we sign off?
Thoughts on this one? I didn't know any of this. I'm gonna be honest, never seen Amityville horror. Don't know anything about it. Literally know nothing. So I'm learning this like firsthand. I know it was something bad, and I know it was like an extreme haunting or whatever after, but that's literally all I know. So like, this is gonna be crazy.
I don't know if I've ever watched the Amityville horror all the way through. But the only thing I feel like I really know about it is it Ryan Gosling? I don't remember who it is that comes, like, out of the house. He's, like, swinging the gun around. I don't know, but...
I have literally no clue.
Now I need to know. I need to know who played that man, if I'm right. There's only about 85 of them. Starting in 1979 and ending in 2017.
Oh my god.
Ryan Reynolds was the one that starred in the 2005 film. That's who I'm thinking of. I knew it was one of the two. I couldn't remember.
Know he was in Amityville horror. What?
Yeah. He doesn't seem like a horror movie guy, right? But
he's in a great horror movie called The Voices. You should watch it. Okay. Anybody listening? I think I said this before, or I told one of my friends about it. It is fucking insane. It is about...
I'll have to watch it.
Yeah, it is about a guy who is literally insane, and he hears voices, and you just got to see it. He's like a serial killer.
Okay. It's Ryan Reynolds shocking us here.
It's like funny and so fucked up. It
wouldn't be
so
Ryan Reynolds if there wasn't some type of funny aspect to it, though.
Yeah. So, like, go watch it. It's called The Voices with Ryan Reynolds. It's great. I loved it. I was so disturbed, though.
Yeah, but as far as I know, that's pretty much all I know about the haunting, other than the fact that, like, of course, the whole DeFeo family was murdered. I didn't really know much about it. And, that Ed and Lorraine Warren were involved in it.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I know about this case.
That's literally,
going
like,
into
the
this.
only thing.
So,
yeah.
I am really excited to dive into part 2. And in that, we're going to cover strictly the hauntings and the investigation and solution by Ed and Lorraine Warren. So I hope you guys are just as excited for that as I am. But it's time to sign off. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to our show for yet another week. Words don't describe how much we appreciate your support. But if you want more Wading into the Void, you can find us on social media. We have some really fun stuff planned this year.
Yes.
You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at
Wading into the Void.
And you can also find us on our website, www.wadingintothevoid.com. Now, what are the other ways our amazing listeners can support us?
Well. We have 2 ways that we can be supported. Well, there's more than 2. But 2 financial ways that we could be supported.
Okay.
So we have Patreon, which we don't really use that much. But we do have patrons on there. Thank you, CL and Dylan.
Yes, thank you.
Where you could subscribe to our Patreon by searching our name, Wading into the Void, in the address bar. We are, like, the only people who come up because of our amazing name. And then we also have Anchor. And Anchor is, like, way less, like, we don't need to provide you with anything like Patreon is. So you could just donate to us, and you can choose how much you want to donate. $1 goes a long fucking way. You don't even understand.
It really does.
Like, we're, like, so hype about having $50 in our PayPal. Like, we're like, yes! You don't even understand. $50 is, like, a lot. That means that we have so much support just from 2 people.
A couple people,
yeah. It's so insane to me. But yeah, if you want to support us on Anchor, we have a link always on Anchor and Spotify. If you want to go support through Anchor.
Yes. Hell yes. It's time to wrap this up. Until next episode, don't take advantage of your parents' generosity. Never set a boat on fire to claim insurance money. And don't claim to be possessed by the devil and demons unless you actually are.
For real.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.